All right.
Okay, well, just hi to everybody and welcome to Navigate. Navigate really is a series of conversations around transitioning. Initially, I've been working through my book and the various chapters, but really, and also massive thanks to Sarah for her opportunity, the power of our story, to facilitate this and to support me and all these extraordinary people that she gives so much time, energy, and heart to. But today I'm going to can my book because it's a real privilege to have Chris on all the way from New Zealand. And I'd like, Chris, if you'd like to just start and share a little bit about yourself, and then let's really crack into a conversation about transitioning because both of us are in this world, and I love the small insight I've had into the things that you are doing. So, Chris,
Sure.
who are you?
Well, thank you for letting me join and kind of participate in this kind of format. I wasn't expecting to do this, but that's good. So my name is Chris Collins. I live in New Zealand. You said it perfectly well,
Yep.
and I wear many hats, but the two which are kind of most relevant for today is one as a serving member of the British Army. I was part of the Royal Signals when I was effectively 18, just and I at the time we was having a conflict with Yugoslavia, basically in anarchy and chaos, and the country was fracturing and there was genocide going on, and I was part of the United Peacekeeping Force that was present to try and maintain stability. And the second hat which I wear is following my time there was around how it had effectively impacted my life, not in a great way, I might add, but also how my friends and buddies from the time and how it impacted them, and got to a point in 2019 where I'd lost so many friends to suicide that I'd finally decided through frustration and anger that I was going to do something about it. At the time, I had no idea what I was going to do, and arguably today, still kind of don't. Um, but we have a charity in place now in New Zealand. It's called Tango Kilo Mike, which is the phonetic for take a knee, mate, which is that kind of posture that you take when you're tired, you need a break, um, or if you're on patrol and something looks a bit suspicious and you don't just want to kind of stand around. Um, and and so part of the charity um, is in actual fact um, my growth and my healing through the loss of my friends, but also the impact that my experiences have had on me. Um, I think it's fair to say that I haven't had a good time of it. I've had a numerous 5 suicide attempts, um, and um, and it's interesting because now, as much as I wouldn't turn around and say I am healed, working through the charity and going back to that core purpose of protecting and serving others, which is why I joined the military in the first place, is now being channeled in a really productive and healthy way through the charity. There you
Amazing,
go.
Chris. Oh, thanks, mate. And I want to apologize for dropping you straight into an ambush
Like,
zone.
it's all
Um,
good. It's all good.
and also just to welcome Katherine to the group. Welcome, Katherine. I don't know if you want to activate your mic and just tell us a little bit about yourself or whether you're just happy to sit quietly. Yeah, we got you a bit frozen, but I think you're there. Yeah,
Sorry
there
about
you
that.
go.
Um, I'm Katherine Rogers, and I served 7 years in the military, in the Army. I spent 1 year in Iraq, and sorry, I just got finished walking. Um, and in my time in Iraq, um, I was in the Battle of Fallujah
Oh,
on April 9th, 2004. And luckily, we didn't lose anybody. We were escorting the American truck drivers to Baghdad, and apparently the roads were supposed to be red that day, or black, sorry, but they changed them to red, so we got to go. Um, well, I was in the lead Humvee, and we went from a 2-lane highway to a 4-lane highway. And we were doing the on-ramp onto the 4-way highway, 4-lane highway, sorry. And we had to do security and everything. And we were in the lead Humvee, and we actually ended up dropping back. And so one of the American truck drivers ran over an IED. We would have been hit. So we were lucky there. Luckily, nobody got killed or anything. And then further down the road, we hear shots. So I'm shooting out of the back of the Humvee over this bridge. We stopped underneath the bridge and were, doing suppressive fire. We ended up going further down the road, and there was nothing but IEDs all on the road. Like the entire road was covered with IEDs. So of course we stopped, and then we got fired. We're getting fired at. I had an RPG fly so close to my face, I felt the wind. And if I had been this much closer forward, it would have blown my head off. Luckily, it was a dud. It hit the front of the truck I was standing next to, and went into the side of the freeway. So the gun truck, we were faced this way, and the gun truck was faced the opposite way on the median, trying to break down the barrier. And there was a few people that got shot. Nobody killed. My friend Justin Bond, he actually got shot through his knee, and he had it amputated later. One of the American truck drivers, he got shot through both of his knees, so I helped him. We were on the other side of the safe side, and we pulled him under the truck, and I helped pull him into the Humvee. We went back to the safe zone. They medevaced him out. Yeah, so that was my experience. I've been very fortunate that I've had a really great support system with my family and friends and everything. So, but I do know some people that did commit suicide, and it's just, I hate to see that, because there is so much help out there. You got to check on your buddies. So.
Yeah. And Katherine, I really want to say thanks for sharing that, because that is one hell of a powerful lived experience. And by the way, I love that bird of yours. It's just
Oh, that's Lily. She's a green cheek conure. And then I have Peyton Manning over there too.
Just amazing. I'm glad my cat's not in the room. This could look interesting.
Wouldn't be able to catch them. They're so fast.
But yeah, Katherine, thanks. And I mean, I've always, I think that whole goal of service that so many of us are driven into is I always say nobody should ever have to come back to die. And I think all of us are working in different ways to ensure that every life saved is like one leaf on the tree that continues to grow. And it's a point at which we have a forest of trees rather than a line of graves. And I think the sharing of your story, and certainly all of us, and certainly with you, we carry the grief, don't we? And I was saying on the conversation Sarah and I were having just shortly before this, that grief is the thing that connects us all. There are generations between us, chronologically, in Australia, New Zealand, the USA. But the thing that binds us both is not just the stories, but the fact that we have the grief that we carry. And the thing that came to me recently in a conversation with Sarah is that they wrote a book on my unit in the Rhodesian Bush War called Holes in Our Lives Forever. And I got thinking about that book, that concept of holes, because we've all got holes. Sarah, you've got holes. Chris, Katherine, we've all got holes from the experiences, whether it's been at war or adverse childhood experiences, life collapsing around us. And I began to think about that hole. And I think when we don't understand those holes from both a professional point of view and a personal point of view, it's very easy to get sucked deeply into it. And at that point, it's where we lose people. And I realized that hole has the most remarkable potential. It potentially is our gift, because it's not just about the doing of the holds. So, Chris, you mentioned before we went on, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, all the body-based stuff, getting out into nature, cold water therapy. And I believe in all of those. I mean, I don't do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because at my age, my bones would break, but I do, I love cold water therapy and meditation, and and all the body-based stuff. And I know that those are important in our lifestyle. And, you know, Chris and Katherine, it's like the thing I always equate it to is if you want to do effective transitioning, you know, you call them pull-throughs, don't you? Cleaning the weapons and everything, cleaning working parts, dropping the oil rag. So we should always maintain, and we should be helping people to learn to re-find who they were in their transitioning journey. And the core thing to begin with always is, you know, what is cleaning the working parts of your weapon? Well, that's making sure you eat, sleep, the good nutrition, it's the exercise, it's a basic cleaning of all the working parts. And then the pull through, when we drop an oily rag in, it's because we recognize that our weapons collect residue day by day by day. It doesn't even have to be in contacts. It doesn't even have to be at war or in the military. The very nature of being human is that our personal barrel, which is our body, same as a weapon, collects residue. And if we don't do something every day, if we don't find a series of pull-throughs that we engage, it could be faith-based, body-based, meditation, whatever it is. If we don't do that, the residue builds up to a point where, you know, we'll have an AD, which is the equivalent of just bursts of anger. Or we'll have a stoppage when the round gets caught in the chamber. And that's like your depression and your anxiety. Or we have a runaway gun where you lose the plot completely. And at that point, you're at risk. And so are others around us. And so the core thing for me is, before we even get into the story about trauma, when I work with folk, is what are your pull-throughs? And if we maintain those pull-throughs every day, it's the one thing that is so much easier to take control of than the stories that have left us with deep pain and loss, apart from who am I, where do I belong, how do I adjust and adapt, what is my purpose and what is my mission when we arrive in civilian worlds. So I want to, yes, did you want to say something, Katherine?
Yeah, I just wanted to say one more thing. So my husband and I are on the board of a veteran organization in the Sacramento area, Northern California. It's called Recreation for Veterans. And I'm only veteran on the board, so we take veterans hunting and fishing for free. None of the board takes any money from donations or anything. We're planning on a pheasant hunt on this Sunday. We have trout fishing next month. We have a pig hunt that was donated through Golden Ram Outfitters in June. That's in Paso Robles. And we just have a whole bunch of great activities coming up. And we went to the International Sportsman Show in January. We only had about 50 veterans signed up. We have over 500 now because of that. So, wow. You know, just our tagline, my tagline was, hey, do you like to hunt and fish for free? I'm a veteran. I get to do that. It's really fun. We were a organization before the owner passed away, or the founder passed away suddenly last year. So we reorganized as Recreation for Veterans and Rec for Vets.
And Katherine, what's your...
looking forward to...
Yeah, carry on. No, sorry, carry on.
Go ahead. Oh yeah, no, just looking forward to all the great events that are coming up and helping veterans and, you know, getting them out and sharing the stories, just networking. I have a guy that helps get our veterans to 100% for VA rating, because that's important. That's pretty much life-changing. It's a lot of money every month, you know, and a lot of perks to that. So my goal is to get all of my veterans that I know to 100%. And it's been pretty successful so far. And it's just recreation, the number 4 vets.org. So rec4vets.org is our website. We're also on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, Sarah, maybe you could post up all the links here. And Katherine, I know you and Chris are kind of got quite a strong overlay, and we'll look at that. What's your experience with the veterans going through the outdoor challenges and experiences that you give to them? What do you see?
It's a place where they feel safe talking about their experiences and being seen and heard, because that's important. Yeah. We had a Vietnam veteran come through the Sportsman's Expo, and I'm gonna start crying again. He said, "So you take veterans hunting and fishing for free?" And I said, "Yeah." And he started crying because he had never been helped. Nobody had ever reached out. So it's just, you know, stuff like, you know, I'm like, if you cry, I cry, stop it. So you know, it's things like that that, you know, especially the Vietnam veterans, they were treated really horribly.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are still stuck back there, unfortunately. But we also are partnering with a psychologist that works with veterans, and we bring him to our events as well. So, you know, it's free of charge. So he volunteers his time, and it really helps. It helps to talk about it, and it helps to, you know, be with other people with your shared experiences. And plus you're getting out into the outdoors and fishing and hunting, and it's a fun time, and you can relax and just be out in nature.
It sounds absolutely amazing. And I mean, Chris, yeah, carry on. Carry on.
So yeah, Katherine, like everything you're kind of resonating and like really kind of rings true. There are some, I think, subtle differences in terms of kind of the amount of trust versus conversation that kind of takes place. What we have experienced here in New Zealand is that very kind of colonial British stiff upper lip attitude where, you know, big boys don't cry, they don't talk about their problems, and there's a real distinct nut that needs to be cracked before we're allowed, you know, before we can have good conversation take place. Interestingly as well, as we through Tango Killer Mike, we don't only look at military, we'll also look at first responders as well. And that also adds an interesting kind of dynamic as well, because all of the agencies have this kind of like secrecy club thing mentality going on. And so until they know that they can trust you, they won't open up about anything, literally anything. And those that do usually are the ones who require like immediate and significant help right from the get-go. And one of the reasons why we have started out with martial arts is not specifically because martial arts itself is any magic elixir, but we use the tagline whereby we can turn around and say, look, if you trust me with your life physically to not injure you and not hurt you, so we can both learn and grow on the mats, why can't you not trust me verbally and emotionally and psychologically? And it only takes a physical act of getting them to the club and getting them on the mats, and then that first 3 to 5 minutes of actual kind of participation, whereby you can pair them up with someone who's very experienced and literally say, Chris, do your worst, just hurt them, knowing full well that there is nothing realistically that they are going to be able to do that is actually going to injure the experienced player. And then afterwards, it's that kind of detoxification of just reducing and getting rid of all that immediate stress and tension from the body. And afterwards, that's the point where we can actually converse. Now, interestingly enough, since we've kind of grown on, what we've actually found is it's not the specific physical act, it's not the hunting, it's not the fishing, it's not the martial arts, it's the actual fact of people together working towards a common goal and having to struggle through that, and in some regard also the discipline that comes with it. So for example, with the martial arts, it's the controlled aggression and knowing to stop when someone says stop. And similarly for things like the hunting, it's also, you know, how to correctly use a weapon, how to safely store it when you're moving, you know, make sure it's constantly safe so that if you fall over, there's no misfire and that kind of stuff. And it's the same basic principles. And through that the connection comes from participating together in something that requires a bit of discipline and also a bit of struggle. And that's what's been so effective for us. And I think in terms of that kind of transitioning period, the immediate thing that what we have identified, coming back to the points that you talked around, like identity and purpose with missions, that kind of stuff, we call it identity, purpose, and belonging. All three of these factors you earn and you live through by wearing a uniform of some description. And those who have had the uniform stripped off them through, say, like injury or old age or some kind of illness, really take it the hardest, because they weren't ready to take off the uniform yet, if that makes sense. And so what we have found is, with the three factors that we talked about, if you were to lose one of those, you're going to be in trouble. But if you've lost two of the three, you are in crisis. And so what we focus on is less about the what has happened, but rather the here and now and what we do about it. Because most people, particularly who have worn a uniform of some description, they love actions, they love plans, and they go, if everyone just goes, it's that way, they will go that way, you know? And so that's why we just focus on the here and now and say, okay, so where are we? What do we have to do? Right, let's get on, do it. Do you need support in doing that? Do you want me to check back in? Do you want me to come with you? And it's literally having, I don't want to say a crutch. It's, you know, we are not supporting them. They are doing all of the work themselves. What we are doing is saying, you won't fall. We won't let you fall. We will be here. If we need to stop, we can stop. We can take a knee. We can take a break, but we're not going to let you fail. And that gives everyone hope. So,
and you know, Chris, and I think Katherine, probably I'm getting the same message from you, is the core thing we're doing in the healing and in the transition process is, first we're creating safety.
Yep.
And we're creating belonging. And we're doing it from a body-based perspective. It's not necessarily on conversation and top-down approaches to the specifics and modalities that work on trauma. We are giving body-based experiences through hunting, through belonging, through jiu-jitsu and being in the presence of others and in nature. And then we form the circle and we have a discussion. So for me, that's one of the biggest things. And, you know, I'm the Vietnam generation, because we were at war. We started in the 60s and went through till the early 80s. But we had nothing. I mean, no one even knew what PTSD was about. And, you know, so I blasted out 3 weeks after coming out of operating. And I mean, we were 4-man sticks in extremely dangerous territory where they were running around in groups of up to 300. And I arrived back at university and I was waking up 30 times a night and I had body aches and pains. You know, my mates, in hindsight, several years ago said my language has really speeded up. And then I blasted through 5 immigrations, a couple of marriages. And, you know, I reckon I'm a reasonably sane bloke, but the story of my living says many other different things. And then I found body-based modalities, which was ultramarathon running. But the problem was, I was engaging in a physical activity, but it wasn't grounded in healing. I was just running. And the thing was, it took me a long time to realize that, I mean, in running, I found peace. I was on the ground, on my trails, in my trees, that edge of long distance and hitting the wall, but I was running away because the experience, one, was solitary, and two, it wasn't grounding in what could I learn to heal from that experience. And I think that's what the two of you are doing. You know, you can hunt till you die. You can fight Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but unless it's grounded in tribe and in meaning and in purpose and vision, well, it's just an experience. It's just a body experience.
Exactly.
And so I've learned that when I sit with veterans, before I even go anywhere, my thing is we've got a mission, and I always ask them, would you leave somebody behind? And they go, absolutely not. So I go, do you think it's possible you've just left yourself behind, and as you've kind of blasted into civilian life, and there's this kind of a yum maybe. So I said, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to formulate a whole lot of SOPs, and we're going to plan a mission to go back. But the going back is not to stay back. It's one, to heal and bring back the wounded parts of yourself. And two, it's to recover your strengths, your understanding, your knowledge, and your skill set, which are still relevant, and use those to navigate forward. So I've learned that when they realize, oh, wow, what I've got is already so powerful for creating healing. I don't have to know anything new to begin with. I just have to use what I already knew, what I'm familiar with, and the strategies and the tools, and apply them in the present moment in a slightly adjusted and adapted way. Katherine, what helped you in your return? What were the things you struggled with as you moved from service to civilian life?
When I got back, my friends were like, you've totally changed. I'm like, I haven't changed. I'm the same person. Sorry. And they're like, no, you're more confident. You're, whatever. I'm like, I didn't see any difference, but they really don't. When you get out of the service, because I was in from 92 to 96. I got out for a while, got married, had some kids. And then I missed it. So I rejoined in 2003 for the National Guard. I was active duty before. When I got out of active duty, I had never been deployed or anything. I was in, during the Gulf War. I went to Germany. It was awesome. But I did miss it. It's because it's your family. You're, and especially, in Iraq, with the National Guard. I'm still in contact with all of those people. We're all on a Facebook page, and you miss it. Like when I got back from the ambush, I told my first sergeant, I'm like, I want to go back out. And he goes, you're not going anywhere. You've already, I was just supply and admin. So I wasn't even a truck driver. We were in a transportation company. And so, when I got back from Iraq, they're like, well, do you have PTSD? Do you have this? Do you have that? I said, no, I don't have any of that. I'm good. It wasn't until probably, well, I remember I got back and I was at work, and I started having these panic attacks that I didn't know were panic attacks. Just out of nowhere, my heart's racing. I can't breathe. I'm like nervous. So luckily I worked at Mather, which is up here in by Sacramento, and they have a really great VA. And I was 5 minutes from there. So I would go in and they do, they'd test me and, do all this stuff. And they're like, I think you're having a panic attack. I'm like, well, all I was doing was sitting at my desk doing my work. I wasn't thinking about anything except work. So it's just, there really wasn't any kind of like outgoing, whatever. Like when you retire from a job, you go through several months of this outgoing stuff to, transition from not working to retiring. They don't really have that over in the military here. So I think there needs to be more outgoing support somehow. But yeah, I didn't really have any support when I got out, so, but through the years, it's been 20 years since then. I've just learned to, kind of self-correct and deal with it myself. I did go to a counselor, and she's like, I don't think you need to be in counseling. I think you're good. And this was in 2020. I saw her for a few months, and she's like, I don't think you need to be in counseling. I think you've worked through your stuff. And, I had childhood trauma and all that stuff that I've dealt with. So I've kind of self-counseled myself, I guess. I have a very supportive husband. We've been together 11 years, and he's a big reason why I'm, more grounded now, because he's had to deal with my PTSD episodes, and we've they're few and far between now, but my thing is yelling. I'll do outbursts if if there's something that I don't have control over, I will yell, I'll have an outburst. But once I get through that outburst, I'm fine. You know, so I'm still kind of dealing with that. I'm trying to work through that, and it's getting better. But yeah, that's my big thing is yelling.
And I mean, do you feel that you being in service and creating tribe for people has been a big part of your capacity to heal?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I have this huge, you know, bigger purpose now. And we created this nonprofit last year. So we're just like, this year is like our big, since the Sportsman show, we've been getting a lot of donations, and my goal is just, you know, get more donations, get more people involved. And having a purpose definitely helps because it keeps you focused. I also have a regular full-time job that luckily I'm working from home. So you know, if I'm not working, I'm working on getting more sponsors. I'm working on getting donations and thinking of more creative ways to fundraise and you know, get more people involved. Because, you know, I'm still having people contact me. We went to a pheasant hunt last week and I got to speak at that. I go to that one every year. And I've been getting a lot of veterans saying, you know, hey, what can we do with your organization? And it's just getting more people involved, and it's just really my purpose right now. And it feels great. I love it.
It does, doesn't it? And I think, you know, the two of you really exemplify the gift, the greatest, I think, gift that veterans can bring to the world is their drive for service. You know, I think we live in an age where so many people can't see further than the ends of their noses. It's me driven. Nobody would put themselves aside for another. There's such a depth of loneliness. And I think as veterans, more and more veterans populate healthily the civilian world, we teach them a new way of relating, which is connection, tribe, sacrifice, service. And I'm not bagging civilians. I just think we all bring different values into this world and this life that we're living on this earth. And I think veterans have a unique thing to offer, because so often I think veterans feel, you know, what have I got to offer? I can't call in a chopper strike anymore. And, you know, I'm not commanding men. And so what is my purpose? Well, it's already embedded inside. And I think when we remind people that the gems are there within you, you just have to remember them. You don't have to, it's not like you have to learn something new. You wired to bring these gifts forward. I mean, Chris, I don't know what comes up for you in terms of what's happening.
It's I'm smiling because there's I very much agree. I think there's I think that there's some kind of really kind of brutal truths that need to be kind of aired. The first is I don't think everyone is cut out for being in a uniform, first and foremost, right?
Yeah.
The classic example is like, you can't be a hero if you don't have someone to rescue, you know, or there's no villains to apprehend or whatever, you know. They use a kind of cliche. And that's not, I don't say that in a way that's like critical. It's just a matter of life. Not everyone is cut out, and that's okay. Where it becomes tricky is where people think they are for the wrong reasons, and then they join, and you have you become I'm going to say toxic, right? But you become toxic as a result of the wrong place, wrong time, circumstances. And so for example, I clearly put myself into that category. So I joined the military following both my mother and my father's footsteps. I joined the same regiment that my father was in, and the act of soldiering, so the fitness, the bushcraft, the tabbing, and all the rest of the kind of actual stuff of being a soldier, I reveled. Knowing that when I served, I can almost guarantee that through the actions of following orders has resulted in people dying at my expense. That's a really, really tough pill to swallow, and it makes you into a really toxic person. And so my experience of going to Bosnia, when I returned, I was so angry. I was so angry at the UN. I was so angry at the British Army. I was so angry at myself, going, we're better than this. We are trained to finish fights, not to sit on the sidelines with a clipboard watching and making notes. And specific to my instance, chaperoning TV crews to find the goriest, gnarliest depths of humanity that they could to get a good story. And I, if anyone had asked me at the time as well and say, Chris, do you think you have PTSD? Do you think you've been affected? I would never have turned around and said, I have PTSD. And I would say I've been affected by what I have experienced in a anger kind of manifestation. And I was very, very angry. And I think that the point comes is it takes someone else to recognize what's going on with you, because I was so close to, I was the problem at that time that I would never have been able to recognize what was going on. And that's why it's taken so long to get the right help and therapy in place to actually kind of come through it. So taking all of that into my current working life, I'm a commercial professional. I work in data and analytics in financial services, and I'd like to say I'm reasonably good on the tools. But the thing where I really excel is this concept of people leadership. And the people who value it the most are the ones who haven't served, because they look at it and go, why are you giving so much kind of empowerment and trust and ability to decide how I do things? And it's like, well, because there is a level of accountability that otherwise you never experience. And I truly believe I've had the ultimate level of accountability and have had to make the hardest of decisions and the results, and live with the consequence of those results. And I think when people understand that, it puts a different lens and perspective on things. And so what it means is that in times of commercial crisis, and very pragmatic, very level-headed, very easy to kind of bring together like a war room and say, right, what's going on? What's the issue? What do we think is going to happen? Right, what do we think is going to work? Right, you off you go, get on with it. When you're done, come back. And other people who've never experienced that really appreciate those who can step up and do that, because otherwise everyone just flaps. And that's really how I've managed to kind of take what I've learned. Katherine, coming back to your point about the whole kind of the missing of it. Absolutely. I miss the I miss the training. I miss the discipline. I miss the struggle. I miss the wading through muck when you're doing bloody assault courses and just running around just because the drill sergeant says so. I miss all of that. But I know damn well I would never go back to a conflict. At that point, I would draw the line. So yeah. So, I don't know if that answered. I went completely off topic. So.
No, not off topic at all, Chris. Because a couple of things come to mind. The first is that the moral injury side of things, which is what you describe, is toxic leadership. That is such a powerful impact, and there's so much of it happening. And when we combine that with just the natural challenges of transitioning, it's so easy to take the symptoms and make a judgment that you disordered. And I don't like that, D. You know, well, moral injury, you are supposed to feel angry. You're supposed to feel resentful. It's toxic. You leave with the poison of that experience, especially when it's resulted in the deaths of others. Then you add the general stresses of transitioning. And I think when we step out of a diagnostic model, we assess you, you've got the PTS with a disordered at the end, and nobody heals if they're disordered anyway. And now we medicate, or we do this and we do that. But when we start to explain to people, it's okay, you have a right to be angry. What happened was not acceptable. It is stressful transitioning. We normalize. And, you know, I tend to, I had a term that popped into my mind one night, which is PMTC, post-military transitioning challenges, because it can look exactly like PTSD. I'm anxious, I'm stressed. My mood's a bit low because I've lost my identity. I don't know where I belong and I got no meaning. So now I'm going to stop eating well. I'm going to start drinking. Now you've got the addictions, but it all began with just getting lost. And if we didn't focus on pathology, or we were careful about how we focused on pathology, and we reminded guys that let's recreate a map and a compass to orientate through into new territory. You know, it's a reframe where the guy goes, okay, that makes sense. It's a challenge. I've been in situations where everything has gone to hell and I'm on the edge of myself, but I draw on who I am. Well, I call transitioning journey just another operational front. How many operational fronts have you done? It's just another one, but we don't have a map for it. It's not a good enough map, and it's not a good enough compass. So people are getting lost. So I think what you're doing, Katherine, what you're doing is critical, because it's reforming a map through purpose and mission and the things you've talked about, Chris. And that's also that sense of belonging. You know, why are we in service? You know, my wife looks at me sometimes because it's like a hunt service. You know, for 22 years with my veterans, I work in a school as a psych, and I support Rhodesians around the world at no cost. Any guy knows he's free to give me a ring, because I'm enriched and they're enriched, and we are healed, or we begin to heal in the service of others, especially in the service of tribe. And that's the most unique thing about the value of service in healing, is that when we heal and we start to give, and in giving we belong, and in belonging we are in tribe, it's just remarkable what happens. And, you know, we haven't yet even got to the point of making diagnostic formulations and medication. And I'm not saying there's not a place for them. But often what I do is I find, let's draw on everything about who you were. Let's get certain things in place, like your pull-throughs and purpose and mission, and then let's see what's left. And often one can be quite surprised. I mean, I don't know, Katherine, what are your thoughts and the experiences you have in your organization with the guys?
All right, right, stop it.
That is cool.
Now, there have been veterans that they've actually opened up a lot, and they're like, I haven't talked about this stuff in 20, 30 years. And it's because they feel safe going to our events, and they know that we have shared experiences, and you know, you tell me something and yeah, I've experienced that too. And it's just, I guess, basically knowing you're not alone.
Yeah.
And I think what you're doing, what both of you are doing, is amazing and great. And it's definitely, I know you're helping millions, thousands of people, and I commend you guys.
Can I just say we are helping.
We. And that
Yeah.
four of us.
Yes, yeah. So I feel so thankful that I did find this organization, because it has helped me tremendously. And now I have a bigger purpose to be able to help our veterans that are, you know, left behind, or they feel they're not alone, you know, they feel that they're alone, but you're not. You know, you have us. We're your family. So, you know, and
So
I tell them, you know, you can call me, text me anytime. and,
Right.
you know, whatever.
So for somebody that may be listening to this at the moment, who's not connected to anything, who's pretty lost in the dark journey, um, who's forgotten who they were in this place between where they served and where they now are, what are the kind of, Katherine, what are the things that you could say to them to give them a light forward?
Reach out to, you know, go to recforvets.org if you know, if you need somebody to talk to. Talk to your family, friends, people you were deployed with. You know, there were a few of the guys in my unit that, you know, they put some crazy stuff on Facebook after, you know, drinking, and they're like, I can't go, I can't go anymore. And all of us are like, hey, you know, call me or I'll call you, and, you know, we're right on it.
Yeah.
So, you know, connections through social media, that's,
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
that's important. Social media is, you know, iffy, but it still opens you up to more people and more opportunities.
Yeah.
You know, just like this, I was, you know, referred to Sarah by someone else, and now I'm here. So it's great. Social media it can be a really good thing.
Yeah, it's very powerful.
So, you know, reach out and tell somebody, you know, that's important.
Thanks, Katherine. And Chris, what comes to your mind?
Honestly, I would say everything that Katherine has just said. The there is that first step that must be taken by the individual who is struggling before any help can be provided, and it's not trying to be difficult. It's just the matter of the fact that we are not mind readers, and it literally is as that. And I think if people took the same time and effort and energy that they put into hiding the fact that they was having problems, into screaming for help to people that they trusted, the place would be a much better place.
Definitely.
Just because of that simple fact that they're actually talking about it, and they don't even need to be asking for help either. They just have to offload what is going on. And I make no claims to say that that's an easy process to take, which is why you pick someone who you can trust. So that could be your partner, a friend, colleague, whoever. But the minute that someone else who isn't affected hears something, then they will almost certainly be compelled to help.
Yeah.
And you know, and I know that sounds very cliched, but here's the thing: if you've got a loved one who turns around and goes, Barry, I'm really struggling, are you going to be the asshole who just turns around and says, "Oh, mate, sorry, not today. I'm a bit busy.
Oh, sorry,
Gotta go
I don't
play
have
some
time
golf."
today.
Yeah, it never ever
Or
happens.
snap out of it. Snap
Yeah.
out of it.
Yeah,
You're fine.
It
Yeah, that's the
never,
one.
Walk it off.
yeah, it
Love it.
never ever happens. And if it does, then you instantly know,
You
don't
know
ever
it's
talk to
on
that
your
person
team.
ever again. Never
Exactly.
talk to that person ever again, and try again.
Yeah. And you know what? Sometimes you don't like, there have been times where I know something's wrong with me. I don't know what it is though. I can't pinpoint exactly what is going on.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you know, and
Yes.
sometimes, but here's the thing: sometimes that's good enough, because even I've had it where I've turned around and I've just, you know, and I've been like, I cannot tell you what's going on, and I you know, I'll throw around terminology like, oh, it must be like my 10th midlife crisis, and you know, we make light of it, but
Yeah.
everyone acknowledges that there is a serious theme underneath, and they go, cool, well, we'll catch up in a couple of days' time, we'll see how you're getting on. And it doesn't, you know, whoever will turn up a chance to catch up for breakfast or a coffee or dinner, or, you know, or a chinwag, because one of the biggest things that that occurred to me was it was probably around that kind of post 10-year mark, so around kind of 30 years of age. I had this real epiphany going, oh my God, I'm living this life where I have zero friends that I would trust to the same level of ability as I did when I was a soldier. Zero.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at that point, things become incredibly murky. And I didn't dwell on the fact of going, oh, I don't have no friends. I was like, right, well, how am I going to get friends? And Barry, like you, I didn't do ultra marathons. I did Ironman triathlon.
Wow.
Okay.
And very similar kind of stupid. I'm not going to deny it. It was incredibly fun, but it wasn't healing. It was a
No.
very good escapism, but it didn't
Yeah.
heal. And also it was not sustainable. It was too hard.
Yeah.
But that was like the stepping stone. And through the act of running and cycling, you can talk. And the minute someone else picks up on something, then the magic happens. Truly, that's when the magic
And
happens.
that's it, isn't it, Chris? The minute you're running in the company of others, going on a hunt in the company of others, something happens where it creates a safe place to talk. It's the most amazing thing. And and I think the thing that you both helped me realize is that for anybody who's listening to this at the moment is in a dark space, it's about reaching out. That takes huge amounts of courage. But yet veterans are wired with that because reaching out is about what creates a safe place. Everybody's reaching out every second of every moment. That's cool. Good with dogs.
Your dogs, my birds.
My cat, I locked him out.
Oh.
So I think that reaching out is really, really critical as the first step. And Sarah, when you're ready for another book, imagine if there was a book which documented all the organizations that could be trusted to work with police, AMBOs, military organizations, individuals, who knows, workshops, online stuff, but that could be trusted because, out there, it's a bit like war. It's a minefield territory. You just don't know whether you're going to get betrayed or not. And I mean, my classic story is a veteran that came to see me. And I said to him, I believe you were seeing someone before. And he said, yep. And I said, what happened? He said, well, it lasted one session. I walked into the room. I sat down on a chair facing the door. She told me to get up because that was her chair. He said, yep, I got up. I walked out and I never went back.
Yeah.
And, that's the problem is that, and when in the stuff I wrote, I actually got a number of protocols for psychologists that, you have to earn the right to enter the room, not the other way around. So there's a couple of things about wake-up calls. And I mean, I think we have to make sure that the people that support veterans are acculturated to it, because a veteran will only really give one chance before they feel betrayed. And that's another moral injury because they've come forward and reached out at the greatest moment of vulnerability when it's already difficult to trust or ask for. We're not good at asking for ourselves. We're really good at giving to others. And I think for me, that's still a working itch. My wife will always give me a bit of a rev because I ask for nothing, very little. I have to get to a hard place to go, I'd like a hug, and so, we works in progress till the day we die because we're used to being completely self-contained. So reaching out is critical. The other thing which I'm interested to hear what you guys think about, which was quite a hard kick for me as an experience, was we march in we have a march called the Anzac March. You may know about it in Australia. And the Rhodesians were all together, and there were SAS guys, Salute Scouts, our deep reconnaissance folk, the commandos. And I remember looking at them and going, well, these guys were doing border pursuits, jumping out of choppers at 500 meters. And I felt completely inadequate, and I felt like an imposter. It was deeply uncomfortable. And as I sat with the guys, I went, well, if this is happening in my body, maybe it's happening in others, because this is not the one thing we want to talk about. We don't want to talk about shame. We don't want to talk about feeling like an imposter. We don't want to talk about feeling not good enough, even to call ourselves a veteran or wear our medals. And I'm telling you now, 99% of the people I've sat with feel that way. And so there's this quiet thing that is interwoven in all these people that unless we have a sense about it, it's easy never to tap into it.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you guys think about that, whether you've ever tracked that or what your thoughts are around that, Chris.
Yeah, it's like I don't think I've ever had that. I've never had that issue pop up for me, but then again, I've always been very focused in saying there is a job for everyone, but not everyone can do every job, you know.
Yes,
And
yes.
I think maybe my specific circumstances are trying to follow in my father's footsteps and prove to him that, you know, I can do it as well was probably like the determining factor in that. Um, as a side note, in terms of particular when it comes to Anzac Day, there is a real undertone in New Zealand which isn't mentioned, and I don't know if it's the right. I don't know if it's the right place to mention it, but there is a lot of people who have served, particularly, I'd say post Vietnam, who have served, who don't feel that their efforts have been recognized as much as those pre and, you know, Vietnam and pre, particularly the older it goes, like, you know, like, so for example, with New Zealand, it's all about Gallipoli and First World War, and it that does cause a lot of resentment, particularly in the younger. I say younger, it's probably like middle aged now, people, because they're like, hey, we served, we put our lives on the line, but apparently the conflict that we served in isn't as important as this one. It's like the minute someone is injured or dies, it's as bad. One or 1,000, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, and that creates a lot of angst. And also there is a further identity crisis, specifically in New Zealand, around. I don't want to say veterans associations because we have a VA here, but we have a Return Services Association, which still works that kind of ideology from the Second World War, which is therapy comes in the form of drinking and gambling and smoking.
Yep.
And the younger generations of soldiers recognize that is absolutely the worst thing you could possibly do. And so now the RSAs here in New Zealand have an absolute crisis on their hands, and it's probably going to fold as a result. So very off topic, incredibly political, very sorry. Probably I'll get nixed in New Zealand now for saying it, but yeah. So
I think we have to call it out, Chris. I think we
Yes.
do have to call things out, because how do we expect people to heal and transition back into civilian life unless the context that surrounds them and that we live within is not doing the right thing?
Agree.
So, you know, the problem is not just the recovery from war and transitioning. There's also a more systemic problem, I would presume, in any organization, in any part of the world, for where any veteran exists, where they feel betrayed and let down.
Yep.
So, no, I think it's good. You know, unless we start to get honest about these from folk on the ground, how are things going to change? We need to be able to challenge. And if people don't like the challenge, then, you know, deal with it.
Yeah,
I don't carry on.
it is a real interesting thing, and I wholeheartedly agree that they're, you know, to what you've just said, and also I firmly believe that agencies can and should do more. The reality is, though, they almost certainly won't, because to acknowledge that there is more to be done also in part acknowledges that they have failed to this point. And there is that kind of the reputational PR harm thing that will take place. And I keep, you know, and I understand from a commercial perspective why that would be really an anchor point as to not to do anything and just blindly go la la la. You know, if I can't see it, it's not their mentality. Or we could actually do what we say we do, which is we accept and acknowledge when we are wrong and we move forward differently.
Correct. Yeah.
But you know, it is a really, really tough thing. And as much as I see that in New Zealand, I see it also in Australia. And in part, I even see it in the UK. And then so then I'm going, well, there's three major powers of Western kind of military leadership kind of failing their ethical duties to kind of support the service that they stand for. Where else is it taking place? And the answer is probably everywhere.
Everywhere.
So,
yeah. I think it's a systemic thing all over. Look, I know we're coming close to end of time. I just want to say, you know, it's you know, I said to Sarah, it's like I've almost run out of this book, and my vision was always, what would it look like when extraordinary human beings get on to have an open and honest look about service and transitioning, and today was what I dreamt about. It really was, because, you know, there's something when we start to have conversations, and the power, I'd have to quote, just the power of our stories, as from the point of view of those that are working with and in service to this population, start to have open and honest conversations around not just the return from war, but what's going on in the place between war and civilian life. And I mean, I feel inspired, because I was actually going today, I was going to start off by saying, you know, look, I wrote 13 lessons, which were, you know, a mixture of what came to me in collapses, ultramarathons, war. And I was just going to work through those and say goodbye, and then just carry on work, attending Sarah's groups. But I mean, if there are people that do want to have a conversation, wherever you are, and no matter what you did or whether you're in an organization, but if you're interested in service and transitioning, I'd love to gather more and more people where we start to have an honest and sometimes uncomfortable look at what's happening, where we create a map that is finely attuned, because we're not only creating understanding, but we're looking at things in the harsh light of whether these things are working or not. And that maybe as we do that, we can create ripples of change that can help others not to have to end their lives. So, I mean, Katherine, what would you, as a final word, what would you offer as something to somebody out there who's pretty stuck at the moment? What would you leave us with?
There's always somebody there that is willing to listen. Reach out, just, you know, call your brother, sister, best friend, whatever, and say you're struggling. That's the first step.
Thanks. And I think that's really powerful. Yeah.
That's the first step is the hardest. Reaching out, that's the hardest thing. You have to do that in order to get the ball rolling, and, you know, tell somebody, say, I'm not doing too good today. If someone called me and said that, I'd be like, hey, what's up? What's going on? Talk them through it.
Yeah, and I don't know whether, I think my generation, I find that extremely difficult, you know, and I think the Vietnam, the Rhodesian generation, you know, we were men that didn't reach out very easily. We put things, I always say, we just accumulated our claymores in a room inside ourselves somewhere. And I think the reaching out can be extremely difficult. So thanks for that.
I think men in general, they're programmed that way.
Yeah.
And, you know, my generation, I mean, I was born in 71. So, my generation, especially, we don't ask for help, you know, unless somebody offers it. If you want to offer me help without me asking, and you can read my mind, then go have at it. You know, but, you know, even me, it's hard for me to reach out and say I need help. You know, like I said before, sometimes there's times where you just, you know, something's wrong, but you can't voice it. You don't know what it is. You don't know what's wrong. Just something's off. So, you know, reach out and say, hey, you know, I'm not feeling too good today. I need to talk. But that's the first step.
Thanks. Yeah, very powerful. And Chris, what would you leave us with?
Two things. So the first thing is everyone who served in any uniform at some point has done something where they've asked that really existential question, going, why the hell did I do this? Why did I sign up? Why this?
Yep.
And in those real kind of pivotal moments which is where that is the point where you're forging steel. Your DSs will always turn around and say, remember why you signed up, remember why you're here. And so if you are in a position as to recognizing that something isn't right, you don't have to be able to label it, you don't have to, but you know intrinsically that something just isn't sitting quite right with you. Remember why you're here. Remember why are you here, and that will give you the resolve to be able to figure out what the next step is, which is to find someone, to talk to someone, to just let them know that something's not right. You don't need the label. The one of the ways that I've kind of tried to express it, and here's the thing, I sound very kind of I sound very cliche when I say, I just got to talk to people. It's like I've literally been in that situation myself where I was going, it's easier to try and attempt to take my own life than it was to pick up the phone and tell someone who I know would have helped.
Right.
Yet for some reason it was phenomenally hard, and I'm not going to make light of it. And that's why I say, remember who you are, remember why you joined, remember why you're here. And then afterwards it will come back in tenfold. It really will.
Yeah, spot on, guys. And
one more thing, just keep in mind that you matter to somebody.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, really good point. You do
whether
matter.
you know it or not, you matter to somebody.
Yeah, agree.
Guys, amazing wisdom. Today's just, thank you so much. It was the last thing I was expecting, and sometimes the last things we expect are the greatest gifts we receive. So I really want to say thanks. And I want to finish off on something I wrote at the end of my book when I tied it all up, because this really came to me. It's like, I don't think I really wrote the book. I think the book wrote me and all the guys that I've sat with over 22 years. But what I wrote was that I said, war imprints on the soul. It reminds us how fragile and yet how precious our lives are. Do whatever it takes to heal your wounds and embrace the time given to you. Our sacred duty is to watch out for each other. A time will come when each of us will breathe our last breath. Life is unpredictable. May you all live each day to the fullest, both within yourself and in your relationship with others. And I really want to say thanks to Sarah, Chris, Katherine, because you guys are so wonderfully in service to people, and every conversation is allowing another human being to breathe better and to continue to breathe day by day. So thanks to all, and yeah, I'd love to keep this going. This was my vision, and I'm really getting tired and bored of my book. So, it's like, take it away.
I'm gonna buy your book. I can't wait to read it.
And Chris, I know you and I are going to be having a lot of other conversations.
Yes.
But thanks to all, and I won't be on next week because I've got to Chris and I are going away. But I may be back. Maybe. So thanks, Sarah, if you want to hit close off the recording. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Barry, and all.